Welcome to Sound and Fairy Book Reviews. As usual, I'm Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Last to Leave the Room by Caitlin Starling. This is a book coming out October 10th, 2023 from St. Martin's Press. This is a psychological thriller. I received this arc from NetGalley in exchange for a fair review. Thank you so much to the publishers. Slow to start, but strong to finish. Last to Leave the Room is an unsettling, mesmerizing, speculative sci-fi psychological thriller. It's got a lot going on. What is it about? The city of San Sirocco is sinking. The basement of Dr. Tamsin Rivers, the arrogant, selfish head of the research team assigned to find the source of the subsidence, is sinking faster. As Tamsin grows obsessed with the distorting dimensions of the room at the bottom of the stairs, she finds a door that didn't exist before, and one night it opens to reveal an exact physical copy of her. This doppelganger is sweet and biteable, where Tamsin is calculating and cruel. It appears fully terribly human, passing every test Tamsin can devise. But the longer the double exists, the more Tamsin begins to forget pieces of her life, to lose track of time, to grow terrified of the outside world. As her employer grows increasingly suspicious, Tamsin must try to hold herself together long enough to figure out what her double wants from her and just where the mysterious door leads. So Caitlin Starling, you may recognize her name from The Death of Jane Lawrence. She was the author of that, a period piece horror that I reviewed a couple of years ago. If you enjoyed that book because of the historical fiction aspect, this is not that. But if you enjoyed the psychological horror aspects of that, this is quite similar. Much like in Jane Lawrence, we have a woman struggling with a force she doesn't really understand, and we, the readers, are also unsure, at least at the outset, of what is going on. In truth, the story is less about the why, but the what, or perhaps the result of what has happened. We watch the effect Tamsin's doppelganger has on her, and we're not sure why it's happening. In a sense, we're trapped in the house with Tamsin, and we're not sure what's going to happen next or why. The book does start off very slowly, though, primarily because Tamsin isn't likable or relatable. She's a workaholic, distrustful, and obsessive, and who seems to have no interests other than fancy cocktails and her work, which we're never really told about in detail. There's talk about the lab and the city sinking problem, but we're not really sure what the company has hired Tamsin to do. As such, the sci-fi elements are quite thin on the ground, a vehicle in which to propel the main storyline, though in this case the vehicle isn't very robust. Yet, I didn't really care. I didn't care. Once the Doppel, or Prime, as Tamsin calls her, showed up, the outside world in the sense of the novel stopped being important. Similarly, Tamsin, who I said is this kind of hard-ass, lofty woman, she becomes not sympathetic, but almost an experiment in herself. We're the ones watching what is going on in the house, watching what Tamsin is going to do next as she tries to figure out what is going on. The mystery itself, the realism behind how Tamsin acts and reacts to the oddness of the situation, is what is compelling about it. It has a sort of House of Leaves feel to it at the start, and then as we get deeper in, we think we know what's happened, and then bam, there is some body horror stuff that takes the story in an entirely new direction. It was really, really fun. This is one of those books that takes a bit to get going, around the 20% mark it really kicks off, but once it does, it just doesn't stop. I really enjoyed the character Lachlan and how our perception of her changes as the story moves along. There are no other characters to talk about aside from a few minor ones, and then the cats, which of course I liked the cats. Overall, I can't say a lot about it because it would spoil like the experience of going through and watching what is happening. Like, I really can't say anything past the first 10 pages. There are some fascinating and interesting concepts in the novel, so I'm glad I powered through the first little bit. If you love psychological thrillers, then you should really check this out. It's definitely one of those 2 or 3 people in the setting kind of stories, as opposed to like out in the world. It's very much like, I guess you call it like a closed door thriller. It's really, really interesting, and yeah, I recommend it. So thank you again to the publisher and NetGalley for the e-arc.